Nice. All right. So I think I can't make Embry run the meeting because she's sick, and I think Piper isn't here. Oof. Can someone remind me how in Zoom to, oh, there we go, view gallery. Oh, much better. Okay, sorry about that. Oh, Andy's here. Yay. Good. And Angie, we never even had Angie at one of these calls before. Very exciting. And we have a new person, Palahula Noah. Cool. Very cool. Because we have a new person, should we do a quick round of introductions? I'll start. I'm Margaret McCauley with the United States Environmental Protection Agency. And I am the sort of instigator of the whole thing because the United States Environmental Protection Agency gets requests for sanitation options from communities where pipe systems won't work. And then I met Embry. Embry, you want to? Communities in rural Alaska, I should say. Embry, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm a poop engineer by training. And I've spent, I think, the last probably 8 or 9 years focused on resource recovery, specifically in the solid sector. So what are the cool things that we can extract from poop that can feed back into the circular economy? I'm also gonna stop there. Sorry.
I'm going to pass it over to Robin because he's next on my screen.
Okay, thanks, Margaret. I'm Robin. I'm based in the UK, a combination of commercial work and university level publications work through University of Aberdeen. And I did have quite a lot to do with the recent meeting in Fairbanks. We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm not feeling a lot better than Embry, so I'm going to have to duck out in half an hour, I'm afraid. I was really just only here to say hi to everybody today. Thanks.
Angie, do you want to give a quick introduction?
Sure, Angie Bywater from the UK. I work for the University of Southampton, but also have a foot in industry through historical connections and have probably worked in small AD and community AD for like it's more than 20 years, which is really scary.
That's a good thing around here. Alex, you want to tell us who you are?
As my screen says, I'm with the Vermont Agency of Agriculture. I come at this from a design interest of how can digester designs be weatherized for a northern climate. I'm looking at manure digesters, trying to find out what I can from this as to how it could apply on a larger scale, especially weatherizing bag digesters. That's kind of my shtick as far as my current direction. So that's why I'm here. And to help this group if I can, we can talk about funding later. So yeah.
Cool. Oh, I see. Judith changed her name. So she has been here before.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have no idea why that other name popped up, but it will be.
So that actually means do we need to continue introductions or shall we jump right into substance? I guess that's a you call. Robin, since you're here and you're sick, do you want to tell us what you got?
Okay, thank you, folks. Yeah, I think it's important to see that we've been trying to draw the line under everything related to the NATO event, NATO-sponsored event that we had in Fairbanks. We're still on a high in the buzz from that because I know so many people. I think everybody really enjoyed it, but there is the admin side of things still to mop up. So this very day, Joy and I have been through all the budget issues and the reporting issues. So the written report has been done, and that's been drafted and sent for approval within. The main signatories were Percy and Lynn over in Lynn at Zenda, but I don't know, Simone, will you need to confirm whether I've done the right thing in terms of keeping her name on the front of it. But the issue is that administratively, just today we finished that part of it. The budget was an absolute nightmare because, how do I say this? I just hope that NATO's trajectories are better aimed than their budget calculation sheets, because it has been really, really hard to understand the transfer of the budget. Was in three forms: the original proposal that we made, then we had to make a prediction of what would happen at the event itself as an official second budget, and now we have to match that to the cent and to the euro cent, so that we can draw down the last percentage, which will go to Zenda before it's all the money is in the bank to be paid out. But we're on target as far as I'm aware. Having done that, the numbers add up, which was nothing short of a minor miracle. So they've done that. I've got hundreds and hundreds of photographs, which I did partition into the good stuff and all the rest, which nobody need look through. So I did circulate a link previously to all my own stuff. Zenda have also, Simone, been really good at topping up your own web links and access to information on your own side, which is really good as well. So that's where we are, really. I think it's a case of next steps in terms of how things are going to progress from here, assuming that we get sign off. And I want sign off really ASAP. And it doesn't concern more than a few people, but it's just a weight off those few people's shoulders to see that all away. So that's all from my end, really, at the moment.
Awesome. Thanks. Amber, do you have stuff before you have to leave as well? Or are you just in the general conversation?
General conversation.
Perfect. All right. So I think I'm gonna mess up my own agenda and have Annie give us a little update on the pilot digester in Fairbanks. I think she's probably a little frustrated with me right now. Haha. Because we, as happens now that we're trying to make it real, we're running into all sorts of unexpected issues. Annie, take it.
Sure, I'll try. I'm not gonna go. I think everyone's seen the design, the latest on what the design was. Nothing much has changed since the last images we went over. I would like to get those graphics updated, but it hasn't been done so that you can visually see what we've discussed yet. But the biggest things that have happened since our last group meeting is that there was a design team smaller meeting, and we were thoroughly convinced that the semi-continuous feed is what we are moving forward with. And so we've been working a plan for that and adding the design for it, what the sampling ports look like to pump out the digestate. We're going to think about doing this once a week, and then to add feed. That is after the system has stabilized. So it won't be immediately once. First, we need to worry about the startup, but I could get feedback on the pumps we're looking at if anyone has experience, and input on whether they're going to function with from where we're sampling based off just like clogging and the strength of the pumps. But I'm going to circle back to that. First, the update on inoculum is the most important one. I've had a few direct conversations with you all about that, but unfortunately, the agreement that I suppose Sarah had arranged in the past fell through because there might have been miscommunication. Golden Heart Utility, our local wastewater treatment plant, aerates their digesters such that they don't think their samples will be appropriate for launching our anaerobic digesters on site. So they have referred us to another wastewater treatment plant in the area at one of the military bases. And we have gotten some resistance. They are not so interested in communicating or donating from their anaerobic digesters. So I have contacted our other friends in Alaska, and currently what's on the table is the option to work with Jasmine. She gave an amazing quick response and has seed from her small digester. Alternatively, Eli provided a thorough list of other wastewater treatment plants in the state of Alaska. So, or pulling from lake sediments would be the other idea he provided. So that is the kind of top topic of conversation. If there is strategy on which one would be best to launch our digesters successfully. And then the sub question around this is I'm going through biosafety approvals, and they want to have a really clear sense. It will make our life in design a lot easier if we have a really clear sense of which risk group, whether it's risk group 1 or risk group 2, the composition, what bacteria will be involved, etc.
Does it help with that risk group thing? I don't know what that is. Or maybe it's totally inappropriate to use manure as a startup. Cow manure has great methanogens.
That would have been my suggestion as something that's easy to get and, you know, probably easiest to start up with. Some nice cow slurry.
Is that easy in Alaska? I'm not sure quite how many cows there are.
I don't see them, but they all, I know that in Delta, I know a guy who has a very small scale operation. I think, yeah, okay, I'll put a pin in that. How does that compare to the option of getting seed from Jasmine or continuing? Amber,
The problem we had, oh, sorry, Amber.
That's okay. I just, we were talking with the University of Alaska because there is some research going on there with digestion. And I wonder if they don't have some laboratory scale digesters that they've been running that they could dip into and get some seed from their just laboratory scale digesters too, if they've got an experiment running, either at Fairbanks or Anchorage. That's another opportunity, I think, maybe.
I was about to say the problem with Jasmine's digestate is that whenever we've looked at the dog do digestate, because of the potential for oocysts when these things go under environmental pressure, any lab suddenly goes into overdrive mode, a safety mode, because of that. And so the dog do digester that we had here, that was bizarrely one of our biggest struggles, was literally just that the health and safety side when we wanted to understand better the behavior of that particular feedstock. Whereas, say, manure is well known, sewage sludges are well known in terms of potential pathogens or whatever.
Annie, there's also, I mean, we ship poop all over God's green earth. And so if we absolutely can't find something in Alaska, we know wastewater treatment plants up and down the West Coast and over through the Midwest who are research partners with us and probably would have no problem sending a carboy of poop. We'd have to talk about volume, right? Out of their digesters. We do that all the time. We just FedEx it overnight so that it doesn't sit and ferment. But so that is an expensive and a slightly more complex, but still an opportunity open if you want me to start chasing that down.
Okay. Max at the EPA made a similar suggestion because they have digesters at the Cincinnati lab, so it'd be a similar shipment process. But at this point, I have been throwing all the lines in the water because each of them have different hurdles for cost and time, volume, and profiling. So I guess I wonder if we could spend a little more time thinking through how I can provide my biosafety committee with the details on the contents. When I say RG1 and RG2, those are NIH classifications of risk groups. So I can circulate what exactly those guidelines are, but it essentially establishes if essentially it's unknown, it's a sludge, but it's unknown exactly what's in there. Then they'll elevate it to risk group 2, which essentially means the entire digester needs to be sealed at all times. So the feeding gets a little more complicated, et cetera.
Yeah.
I would think if, oh, go ahead, Margaret.
Well, definitely send that to me, and I can see if I can work, some federal government magic on that.
But I would also say that if Max has a digester that he's running, then he knows exactly what's in that sludge and that digestate coming out. And so actually getting it from the lab might actually sort of smooth out some of those biosafety issues, because if it's a mesophilic anaerobic digester with an SRT of 30, then there's going to be some pathogen reduction, and he can document that, and he can characterize the digestate for you and give you exactly what's in it. So there is the benefit of getting it from a lab from that perspective, if Max is willing to ship it. I mean, I'm assuming he's characterized it. I mean, that's just right. But I mean, it's more the probability of the lab having characterized it is maybe is higher, possibly.
Yeah. And maybe I might get that same level of information from UAF, but
yeah,
I have to figure out who to talk to on that front. So yeah, I guess that's a nice thought in terms of trade-offs. Even though shipping seems like some hurdles, it actually might simplify the entire required process then on.
Don't let shipping, again, like, it's expensive, but like I said, we've sent poop to Germany, so it can be done.
Okay. I was gonna spend some time asking if anyone's digesters are totally sealed, closed. But if we're able to get, the safer seed, then maybe that simplifies that. We don't need to. I saw a few shaking heads. So.
As Embry said, the lab digesters, if they're small batch digesters, will be totally sealed normally, if they're doing just a batch thing. But most things that are obviously being fed or whatever aren't totally, they're sealed insofar as they might be water sealed or pits or whatever, but not totally sealed.
Okay. Thanks for that feedback. I'm gonna move to my next question, which is the number we have been operating with is 35 gallons in a 55-gallon drum. So that is 20 gallons of headspace. And I'm curious if everyone has any feedback on that. And in a similar question on ratios, when I am sourcing inoculum, should I go for as much as possible? There really isn't a literage problem. It might be confined by shipping, but any take on at least you need at least this much, and it doesn't really benefit you to have more than X.
Can I just say, if you were able to fill it with that much inoculum, then it would be better. But we've done as little as, I don't even know, just probably about maybe even a tenth in a small digester, and just filled the rest with water. But then of course you have to kind of heat up gently, and then as you're getting gas, you then start to feed gently. And there are rules behind this. I could find the rules of thumb, if you like, from some of the stuff I have.
That would be great, Angie.
But obviously the faster, if you have 35 gallons of existing digestate from a digester, you can heat it up much more quickly and get more, because it's got a process established, rather than trying to establish a process using much less inoculum and much more water. But we do it that way. It's just much slower.
Alex, I did see your message in the chat, and that is what I was thinking of in Delta. Thank
Yeah, any ruminant. I mean, it could be goats. If you know somebody has goats or sheep or anything, like ruminant, that's the key.
So is 35 a happy number to work with? Did anyone have any comments for why there should be more in each tank? In some ways, we went on the extra side of caution just for the sake of freezing. That's where that comes from. And then I guess the third ratio I was thinking about is, we had the synthetic feces recipe, which you all worked with. One was much more solid, one was much more liquid. I'm wondering about viscosity, and if there should be additional water added, as if like you make the synthetic feces and inoculate it, and then also, as wastewater treatment plants might do, add water to the sludge, or whether it should be treated as the solid it is replicating.
So wastewater treatment plants do not add water to digesters. They actually try to get as much water out of the poop as they can before they put it in a digester to reduce the volume. So if you're if you're worried about if you tell me what the concern is about viscosity, just removal or mixing or
Yeah, it's mostly for the pumps, for the feed. That's where the concern arose. Sampling, essentially. I will show you our pumps that we're considering, actually.
I think what you should target is a total solids percent and not worry about, you should think more about like what total solids is in the digester and design around something like that. Because that's going to be something that is a apples to apples comparison with other.
Can you see my screen right now with pumps
Yeah.
to consider for digestive removal?
We've used those
comes into
whale
play.
pumps before,
Okay.
and certainly if you're using a real feedstock on a 1-inch pipe, it will block up and you will hate your life. Most of our pipes are 4-inch pipes, with cow manure or food waste or stuff like that, where on the whale pumps, if you know, we have used them before, but oh my God, we had one where it was a food waste digester, and it caused us no end of problems. In the end, I think they just used buckets. But if you're using the you know, your synthetic feedstock, as long as, like you say, you can get it through there.
Okay, not the most glowing review though.
1 inch, yeah, 1 inch is very, that's just, that's water. Like I
It's
wouldn't
just-
pump anything
yeah.
through that but water.
Okay. So I heard 4 inches. Does anyone have experience with pumps that are, you know, I think one of the things we can, well, the synthetic pieces are more potentially homogeneous, but I guess there's still some separation expected, and we'll be sampling from a set height that should be at the center of as close as possible to the center of the digester without agitation.
It's always a case of kind of what you're trying to pump and why. So you'll notice a lot of the easy Indian digesters, and Jasmine's digester, for example, is a push in and fall out digester. And so when we were designing for these sorts of things, we always try and design out pumps. So my digester, for example, just has auger push in and it has overflow. And if I have any issues on the overflow, I have auger on the outlet. You know, if it's a particularly thick or dry feedstock, and the inlet is you know, large inlets, and the outlet is a 4-inch inlet outlet.
But based on the poop that we played with in Fairbanks, a 2-inch would probably be okay if that's the consistency and chunkiness of the sludge. A 1 inch, yeah, I mean, it's just, it just might dry out between pumps, and then you've just lost a lot of, I don't know, 2 inch. 2 inch might be all right.
Okay.
4 inch is pretty big for the poop that we played with it
Yeah.
in Fairbanks.
Yeah, for the synthetic stuff, you wouldn't need anything that big for sure.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that feedback too. We are in some ways sticking with mechanical pumps just for simplicity's sake, instead of doing something that requires electricity. But it's not off the table. I guess the other updates, just to let everyone know the updates, we are still discussing, so Margaret and I will be talking more this week about how we will be doing the laboratory testing, whether it works out with UAF or whether it's going to be simpler to ship back and forth with EPA. I guess in that vein, last time we discussed a bit the time from sample to lab. And I wanted to maybe spend a moment to ask you all if, I know that time, you know, we're moving farther away from the reality of inside the digester, the longer it takes to get sampled. Just how critical do you all see that being?
I guess I didn't quite follow the question.
Yeah. Say that one more time.
So we are taking a sludge sample once a week, and we're taking to lab to test. And that's where, you know, we're looking at our COD and acids and pathogens. How much are those things impacted by the time it takes to potentially ship to EPA versus how important, or is it worth figuring out this UAF partnership to try to get that time from sample to lab to decrease?
So the way you collect the sample is very prescribed by standard methods. And there's certain receptacles, and depending on the analyte, certain preservatives are in the bottom. And so then you will ice it and you will ship it overnight to the lab. Punct. And so I think what we need to do is I don't know what the plan is with Max, but theoretically, or what we've done in the past is just have the lab prepare the bottles with whatever volume, with whatever bottle type, with whatever preservatives, whatever. Put all that in a cooler, ship it to you, and then you just take the sample in whatever bottle it goes into, and then ice it and ship it back. But there are, again, depending on analyte, there are prescribed holding times, and there's prescribed, stuff that maybe need to be in the bottle.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that Max, was the intention that Max prepare the cooler and ship it up to you guys, and then and then you ship it back?
Yeah, that was what Max last said. Margaret, I wonder if you might be able to prompt him, because I haven't actually seen the details of that, and that's why I had reopened the conversation.
Yeah.
I don't know if he has those prescribed methods. I was sort of expecting to go off the lab provided procedures there.
Yeah. Okay. So we're checking with Max if he has prescribed method or just provide bottles with instructions. Okay. We have Tom Curtis has shown up, and he's the one who got us the new possible connection at UAF. I personally feel like it's worth attempting to make that connection, even if we do the shipping to and from Cincinnati for a while, because I feel like having local support is always optimal for this sort of thing. That way, if something goes weird, it's easier to work out. But that's my opinion, and obviously I'm dumping a lot of work on you, so I am not gonna.
So, Margaret, could you say that again? I didn't quite catch what you said.
You had come up with a wonderful new connection with Dr. Mario. I'm not remembering his last name.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And so Annie is attempting to follow up on that. He's been very responsive. It's been great.
Good.
It may not entirely get worked out. We may use shipping things to the United States Environmental Protection Agency's lab in Cincinnati for a while, but I personally feel like it's worth cultivating that lab opportunity at the University of Alaska Fairbanks that you gave us.
And another thing, Mario wrote to me about a possible source of research funding, and so I since I had my stroke, I've been avoiding evening meetings because I've been told to just like do my 9 to 5. But and also Wednesday's climbing night. But tonight I forego my climbing. I thought I'd pop in because there's a National Science Foundation Canada UK call for exploiting the bioeconomy to meet the needs for demand-led needs. So I think it could be very helpful, and it would reward Mario for his collaboration if it came off in terms of funding, because money is the sincerest form of sincerity. So so yeah, so that would help Mario do things. And Mario seems like a really nice guy, and it would depend a little bit on what his resources are and that kind of thing, and what pairs of hands he has and how tooled he up is to do what he has to do. But the more he can do, the better. So that's good. Yeah.
Did you say since you've had a stroke?
I had a stroke last summer. I had two, in fact. So I had to slow down quite a lot. So and I've had another one since. So I'm just going to be a bit careful with. I mean, it's very. You can see I'm all here, but that just means I've been really careful with my workload, and including working past 5 o'clock and things. So I've been going easy on the evening dues, but I think this might be an opportunity. So I think I wrote to Margaret a couple of weeks ago and just said rather vaguely that there was something to look into, but I hadn't spoken to Mario. Called it to my attention. I hadn't written to Mario, looked at it and written to Mario and said, would be interested? And Mario is interested. It's a matter of sort of like now me and Mario having a chat. But it is potentially, it's funding for US, Canada, South Korea, and Finland. Okay. But the way it works is each country funds its own research individually, and there's proper money available, and it's for 5 years. So it's I think in the UK there's £2 million on the table, and there'll be presumably a similar amount, maybe actually slightly more available through the NSF funded partners and through the Canadian funded partners. So and I do know people in South Korea, and I know that Robin knows people in Finland. So who knows how far we could go? But I thought that was definitely worth popping my head above the parapet and letting you know. And I'm sorry, actually, I didn't look at my watch. I thought the meeting started at 6, so I missed the first half an hour. I was actually lying down having a rest upstairs, and I thought, oh, and then I came and I realized I could have been in the meeting half an hour ago. So I'm sorry I'm late. But what I will do is maybe send the details to Margaret, copy it into Mario, and we can start to make it go. We've got till I think the 14th of June, which is enough time, but it's not too much time either. To write the call, and it's and I think probably to get the funding, it has to have a really posh scientific sheen on it, but I can actually do that, and certainly Mario can. His work's excellent. Then we could then think about probably Jane Fowler would also be eligible for funding. So I think we've got the core of the team already. And if you keep talking, I'll actually send the link to everybody so they can see what it is, and and we can make a start. So there's the. Oh, here it is. I know. I can't find it right now, but I'll. If you just carry on with the meeting, I'll dig it out, and I'll send a link in the chat, and then you can follow it, and then we'll see what happens. Oh.
Excellent.
So if you keep talking,
yeah, I feel like that's an excellent idea to keep the interest of University of Alaska Fairbanks, as if we can connect them to millions of dollars of funding.
Yeah. and Mario's, he's a relatively young new professor, so his enthusiasm is great, but he needs to think about his tenure letter in a few years' time. So if we can actually get some funded research for him, that'll really help him collaborate and promote his career at the same time. I mean, I'm sure you all know the rules of the game. So that would be good. and the yeah, so that would be particularly excellent.
Nice. So Annie, do you have more things that you'd like to run by this group, or?
No, I think we hit the major points. I wish I could say I had more answers to provide, but I will take the feedback and let you know. The only thing I would ask is, this was I kind of waited on sending another design email until this meeting so I could see how much progress we made. And because so many things are up in the air, I just haven't scheduled that. So for those wondering, that's my excuse. And perhaps maybe in the next month, I'll pick out a design group time. But other than that, I feel all set. I will talk with some people directly based off what comes of the feedback. And if this meeting would like to move toward more discussion of funding, that is fine by me, unless anyone has questions for me.
I did put in some unsolicited advice for you, but that doesn't really qualify as a question. I'm big on the unsolicited advice.
Yeah, no, I think there's some solid links from a number of people here in the chat. That's great. So the next couple things are on the agenda are more sort of free form. Well, I guess suggestions for improved ways of sharing documents and photos is not entirely free form, but something that I welcome other people's ideas on, because I'm personally having a little trouble with the ARPIC site. If other people aren't, that's good to know, because that means it's a user error, which it entirely could be. And if other people are, but have suggestions of other ways we can do some of that basic document sharing, so people can use the photos, you know, for things like new funding applications and collaborations, that would be great. So there's that specific technical question, and then just the open forum for ideas and opportunities, hot research questions.
So just real, does everybody have an IRPIC account? Because at the very least, I get emails that we're having these meetings, right? So that's helpful. So does everyone here have an IRPIC account? And it's okay. I know you do, Alex. Angie, did you get in? Okay. All right. Just checking. Annie, Annie, you're in, right? Okay.
Cool.
Margaret, I had a question about the IARPIC meeting on the 29th that I think you said. It looks like it's on the 22nd and 29th. Lynn and I might be able to join, but are you saying if we did, it would just be during a breakout session on the 29th? I wasn't sure if you had more information on that meeting.
Right. So the IARPIC Community of Practice team leads have been invited to a sort of inter-team collaboration opportunity. It's on 2 days. And the cold high anaerobic digestion community of practice has the opportunity to sort of have our own breakout session. But we would need to think about like what we were trying to do with that, which would be mostly like activate connections with other IARPIC member, you know, whatever, affiliates or whatever, to create connections and ventures that we envision. And I don't myself have that sort of structured or unstructured. I don't really have anything to fill a breakout room. And so I think there was this opportunity, I'm not sure whether it was last fall or last spring. And I did just throw on a breakout, throw our name into the hat, and then I didn't come up with it. And then I didn't realize I'd been accepted, and so I didn't do anything with it. So I was trying to be a little more thoughtful ahead of this one, and I personally don't. But if other people would like the opportunity to connect with other Arctic researchers, it's open this time. It's open in subsequent subsequent gatherings. I'm not sure how to make the most of it.
Okay, got it. I'm looking at what you'd sent. I see the agenda and the Zoom link. Okay.
I feel like my perspective is possibly too narrow to make the best cross-cutting.
Thank you.
Yeah, Annie, want to go for it again?
Yeah, I was just typing it out because I didn't actually want to interrupt if you want to stay on that point. It's like, oh, these are some pivots here. But the question I had missed was about the tightness of the temperature range for the digesters. And specifically because we have 4 different heating systems. 2 of them are applied heat, so the coils inside the tank and a jacket on the outside of a tank. We will be powering them as if this is an entirely off-grid scenario. So the PV system we're making some decisions about how to optimize that system for cost compared to like what it actually is supplying the load. We're not assuming 100% reliability. So the question becomes, we have a lot of sun during the summer, so I'm not too concerned during June and July because it's warmer and sunnier, so we'll have more power. But when we think about storing energy, so if we were to include batteries, we would have a kind of an oversized system so that we're over generating and have storage to get us longer through the night. So what we're discussing now is what % of non-daylight hours can we put up with 0 applied heat for those heated systems. Go into more detail if you want, but first I'll go ahead and let Alex.
So really crude understanding, but just reading Professor, what is his name, Marti. It's not so much about what's an acceptable range, it's about how quickly you change. Flow is good. If you can change the temperature very slowly, then things adapt. If you don't change it slowly, then things die.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. In some ways, that is almost like the strength of the passive solar system. That's where that might come in. When it comes to adjusting the settings on the coils, for example, it's like you can choose an optimal temperature, which is like we'd like the digester to be here, but then essentially it will use all its energy to try to stay at that temperature, and then it runs out of electricity and it plummets. So rather than choosing an optimal temperature, the argument is maybe we choose the optimal electricity usage so that it actually tapers out over a longer time period. Even if it's outside of the ideal range, because we're not going to be able to stay at the ideal range. Is that a fair interpretation of how to make use of that?
have you done any back of the fag packet calculations on sort of because the classic one is, of course, what is your energy requirement to heat it versus your energy production, which is always just, I sometimes think it's slight red herring, wherein bearing in mind that that's not necessarily what the whole point of it is. But certainly what I will do in winter, like I said, I will normally run my digester quite cold, as cold as I can get away with without collapsing the process, which tends to be, I really struggle below 20. And okay, it depends upon your size with your 55-gallon drum and your insulation and any ingress and that sort of stuff, any bridging. But you have to try and say, okay, I need to, and some of that's going to be experience. So you either have to design it to try and, we have a fudge factor. We'll do the proper energy calculations, and then we just have the fudge factor for heat losses and stuff like that, so that we have kind of an idea of where we might be, and then try, it's not going to shift temperature really quickly. So for example, if I have a sunny day, I throw lots of energy at it. If I don't have a sunny day for 2 or 3 days, then I'm not able to throw as much energy at it, but I might only lose a degree in temperature. So it's not a huge big deal. But it depends upon the size, the digester, the solar gain, whatever else you've got going on there. It's complicated.
Okay. Yeah, I think part of what we're going back and forth, or Margaret and Max, I'd like some more on the EPA side input, is we can easily design something that costs more money and meets all of the needs that we'd like. It gives us more flexibility to do that when we actually, because we have models where we say, hey, we know what our loads are. We know exactly what our solar potential is at this exact site even that we're going to have them. However, there is this cost limitation where, we want to make it a theoretical deployment. So are we going to cap our budget here and say, we're not spending more than this amount of money, and then we'll just empirically understand that's how much life it has extended for the digester. That's one angle. But we don't want to put money into a system in the first place and then it doesn't actually do much for us at all.
I mean, yeah, we could come up with how much do we think it would cost to build one in a village? But I feel like right now there's enough moving parts and issues. Cost shouldn't, we don't have. I'm not sure cost is the most optimal, but obviously it is definitely in the mix. Not very helpful, which is why you have the question, because I'm not answering them.
Okay. That's all right. I just wanted to know if there was anything I'm missing as we do our design. I think adjusting how we set and make those heating mechanisms adjustable so that we're tapering is maybe the biggest takeaway. Hi, Mike. It's good to see your face. I'm glad you made it safely.
Yeah, thanks. It was a little chillier than I thought this morning.
Goodbye. Zoe, come on. Come on. Come on, Zoe. Find me, Dad.
And Brian, I see your feedback on in terms of using the biogas. We haven't incorporated utility of the biogas in the design yet. Mostly for storage and complicated reasons once we think about burning it. One idea in terms of panel placement that was suggested is actually mounting the PV panels to the shed itself, because the panels kick heat out the back. So using the actual panels as heat directly into the shed, because doing a vertical mount facing south up here is just as good as doing an angled mount on the ground, pretty much. So that idea is on the table, which would utilize the heat from the panels to try to help with that nighttime cool off.
That sounds ideal, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good comment to make, for sure. I mean, this is something similar to that happened at the conference.
It's another time where we're balancing the practical experimental side of things with the, well, yeah, the digesters won't be running in the winter at all. They'll be totally decommissioned, but to use some sort of heating in the shoulder season as the temperatures begin to drop.
Totally decommissioned or frozen?
Well, frozen. Okay.
So you're
Thank
going to
you.
be using solar you're going to be using solar PV at those other seasons, and hoping to, because you can then gradually take up your temperature and gradually bring it down as well, which is, you know, as depending upon what your solar use is.
So it's interesting.
So the solar will help extend the life of the digester in the fall. Different for the different systems. Obviously, there's no applied heat to one of them. And then theoretically, when thawing begins, it would speed up the thawing process in the spring. Tom, thanks for stepping in. Okay. I think that's all from me. If anyone has any other thoughts.
Nice. So if people have other collaborations or research ideas that they want to float, we got some time for that. Otherwise, we might have a short meeting.
Did we get this item here, the next advisory design conversation, or that can come by email, I guess? I'm sorry if I missed it.
Yeah, I just mentioned it. I was waiting till this meeting occurred just because I had updates that might have been redundant and I wanted to share with the whole group. I am hoping to have some more details figured out on this end, and the design meeting, I will try to find some time in the next month on everyone's calendars.
When your emails come through, they flash. So I'll see it.
Fabulous.
I don't have that.
Danger.
I told him that this didn't work out.
Thank you, everybody, for your time and feedback.
All right. So think of things you'd like out of this group, and both people who are in the call right now and those who are associated more generally, and make use of the connections. Give me thoughts on document sharing, and I think we can just say we're done for the day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Cheerio. Bye.